Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing the market sell off in a big way. And of course, yes, it's going to affect altcoins, including Hedera. I do feel as if every single time I make a video regarding, HBAR or XRP or Telcoin or this altcoin or that altcoin, and if the price is going down, it kind of feels as if some of the individuals that are commenting are only looking at that altcoin and saying, why is HBAR down today? And again, I just want to stress that we're still tied back to what's happening even with Bitcoin. Right now, yes, HBAR is down 4% in the last 24 hours. In the last week, we're down about roughly 13%. In the last month, 13.4%, but in the last year, we are still up over 130+%. But the main thing that we are looking at here is, has it been easy to hold altcoins like HBAR? And what I mean by like HBAR, I mean pretty much any altcoin out there besides like a few like XRP. Most of these altcoins haven't made a new high since going back to January. We are coming up on almost an entire year where price action has been pretty stale and stagnant, and we've just been in a massive downtrend. And during this time, most people are just pointing the finger and saying, that's a bad project because the price action is selling off. However, just taking a quick look at the market itself, I mean, Bitcoin is at 94.9K. We did hit a low today earlier at about roughly it was like 4 p.m. or so, 94 point almost 3K. Since then, we're starting to bounce a little bit, but I'm not dead set on us being fully bottom just yet. However, most of the market is oversold. We clearly see that just by going off the average RSI across the board here. But I bring all of this up because, again, yes, we are seeing negative price action. Yes, we are losing trends. Like, for example, the trend line that I did outline and that I was following since roughly going back to the middle of October. We have since then lost this trend, and I'm watching something very interesting on this chart. That interesting point on this chart is this red zone down here. This is between about 12 cents and about roughly 14.5 cents almost. I'm just watching to see if this does get retested. Currently, right now, we are trading at about roughly 15.5 cents. We're retesting that low going back to October 16th. And, I'm really watching to see something hold here. The last major sign of strength prior to, our run up back in November, this like 13-cent zone is what I'm really kind of looking at. After that, we're really kind of risking retesting some significant lows going all the way back to 2024. And then the original start of the impulse move that got us to our January highs. So I'm watching to see if something's going to hold between roughly like 13 cents to about roughly like 14 cents or so. But yeah, I mean, listen, this is definitely a rough time. I'm not going to, sit here and say, hey, why is everyone crying in the comments about negative price action? No, I'm right there with you. It sucks. I hate it. I would love to see HBAR trading at $1 plus. But this is what we have to go through, right? This is crypto at the end of the day. This is what we've gone through in the past as well. Just for reference, right? We've just been kind of trading sideways. I want to say something very interesting here that I'm looking at on this chart. The main thing that I'm looking at is this long extended price action going back to January. Believe it or not, we might not be looking at this the way that we're supposed to, because again, the way that I'm looking at this price action, it feels very similar to this price action going all the way back to 2020 that led into 2021. For an example, we have this nice impulsive move. After that, we started to just kind of range. And this did not last for like 10 days. No, this lasted for well over 322 days. Our current view from our prior high, we have been going sideways for about roughly 300 days. If you go to the high that we barely broke over, especially on the weekly view, about 343 days. Again, I'm not saying that we are going to repeat the same exact move here. I'm just saying that it's very similar. We have this nice run up. We have this nice chop consolidation. And by the way, yes, we did also have a sell-off that led to, a little bit more consolidation before we finally broke to the upside. If this is the case, if we are going to see something like this, I can easily see HBAR hitting our price targets of roughly $1.50 to $3 this cycle. I also want to show you guys that on the 3-day, RSI is now back to the lows, going all the way back to April of this year, which a lot of people said that was like extreme fear, which it was. And it's also right around the same lows going all the way back to November of last year as well, right before that big impulsive move. I bring this up because, again, I feel as if the market is getting peak negative at this point. I also feel like fear is starting to pick up in a big way as well. And when we are looking at what's happening around this cycle, are we following that typical 4-year cycle? Are we following, the prior cycles and really kind of repeating them? I do think that there is some, similarities. But I do also think that a lot of things have changed, and I've said this on multiple occasions. When it comes back to HBAR, right, we could sit here and analyze the price chart. We could go and talk about how HBAR should be doing this, should be doing that. But we are still focused on Bitcoin at the end of the day because, with Bitcoin, and I showed this even in my video earlier today when I was talking about XRP, actually, with Bitcoin dominance is still significantly high. Even if I open up a new tab real quick and just go to Bitcoin dominance on, on TradingView, looking at Bitcoin dominance, we are starting to sell off today, which is very good to see. We did hit this blue zone, which is my demand zone that I have been waiting for quite some time. This is a very good reaction on the weekly. Technically speaking, in a perfect world, okay, and especially going back to HBAR's current view, we're selling off. We're selling off with Bitcoin, of course, but we witnessed a major sell-off as well in the market right before Altseason happened in 2021. I wanted to bring up this chart because if we are at the dead cat bounce here for Bitcoin dominance and we are about to sell off like I have, outlined on this chart, technically speaking, let me just go back to Bitcoin here. Let me go to TradingView. Technically speaking, we have our uptrend here that we did recently lose on Bitcoin dominance, or on Bitcoin, sorry. Let me just draw this a little bit better. Okay. So here is our trend line. We did lose it. The weekly close is not in yet. We could still have a strong impulsive move here. If we start to see Bitcoin rally back to prior highs, and if we manage to clear 120K, we break out, retest the all-time high, break over that, and continue to rally higher at the same exact time that Bitcoin dominance is selling off, I do think that we could be repeating that same pattern going all the way back to 2021. We got to remember here, okay? And I just want to go to the weekly real quick. We got to remember here that Altseason does not last that long. The market already has been running for a very long time. The initial push here on Hedera back in 2021 was about 70 days. The total view here, 252 days. Most altcoins from the start of January of 2021 topped in May of 2021. Some altcoins did continue to go higher. HBAR did, try to push higher. But I bring this up because if we start to have, Altseason yet again here, again with Bitcoin dominance dropping, with Bitcoin, starting to drop in a big way, potentially, marking a bottom here, we got to wait patiently for this, obviously, because we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. The cursed Altseason, because we've been talking about Altseason forever now, and everyone has been talking about it, and you might be saying, well, Altseason's never going to happen. We've been hearing about it forever. Typically, that's when we start to see Altseason happen, because again, even back here, Most people did not think that Altseason was going to happen. You can go back to 2020 and just kind of look up Altseason and go through the comments. It was peak negative. Same even with 2017 as well. But that's typically when we do see it. But I bring this up because, again, the pattern is so similar. We have that initial impulsive move. We have the sell-off. We have the chop. We're chopping just like this, right? Initial push to the upside, the sell-off, chop. If we have a push from our bottom, say for so this is going to be our bottom, maybe we even just chop a little bit more, 70 days. Okay, that takes us to about January of 2026, the end of January. Would make a lot of sense. 252 days would take us to about roughly July of 2026. If you look at the liquidity chart setup, right, and I mean the liquidity cycle itself, we should top in 2026. So this would make a lot of sense. I've also mentioned how Q1 of 2026 would be prime time to focus on for taking profits. Again, HBAR still looks good here. I'm not too concerned about this recent sell-off. It feels as if it's a forced capitulation event. And looking at prior cycles, looking at just 2020 into 2021, it feels as if we are repeating a very similar setup where we have that initial push, we have the consolidation that lasts for quite some time, killing momentum, killing any sort of, bullish sentiment. Because again, when you have altcoins that are just ranging and chopping and even going into a downtrend for over 300 plus days, guess what? Retail becomes impatient. They become negative. They don't even want to hear about bullish post. But it's also at the same exact time that Bitcoin dominance still looks pretty weak here. We're still starting to have that sell-off from those highs. I feel as if the setup currently around this market is similar to prior cycles. I don't care about 4-year cycles. I don't care about anything like that. I care about the facts, right? I care about what leads to Altseason. Typically, when we see a rotation from Bitcoin dominance into altcoins, just like we saw back here in 2017 and 2018, just like we saw back here in 2021, as well, I feel as if we could potentially be seeing the same exact thing here. We have been waiting. We've been waiting patiently. I do think that the waiting will soon pay off. I don't think that we witnessed an Altseason like 2021 or 2017 and 2018. And by the way, I don't think that I need to tell you guys this, but I don't think anyone was euphoric on altcoins during this time here. Markets typically do not top on fear. They don't typically top on frustration. They top on euphoria. We have yet to see that in the altcoin market at scale. So right now, when we think about this market, one of the most important things to focus on here, especially for altcoins, we are still, in my opinion, at the end point of the consolidation phase, leading in to the expansion phase. This is where we do see a repeat like we saw back in 2021. Okay, this move here. And in 2017, 2018, obviously HBAR wasn't around, but in 2017, 2018, we already know how crazy altcoins, their charts looked. I feel as if RSI is getting back into the point of, extremely oversold levels. Even if we go back to fear and greed as well, fear and greed is back down to 22. This is a very significant low. We're nearing extreme fear levels. Stocks hit extreme fear earlier today. Bitcoin, extreme fear as well. I don't think people are expecting the next move in this market. I think everyone right now at this point is expecting this to be done. They think that the bull run is done. A lot of people have PTSD going back to 2021 as well. And I feel like if we start to see Altseason at this point, everyone will be in disbelief. And I think that that's exactly where we want to see the sentiment really at that point. We don't want everyone to be expecting Altseason. We don't want everyone to say, all right, yeah, this is when Altseason happens. Because again, if that was the case, it was going to be way too easy from the start. And it just would have been, again, it would have just been too predictable. So the markets typically like to play with emotions and play with their food before they swallow it up and spit them out. But if you are looking at this logically, then you could avoid getting eaten by these whales that are constantly shaking the tree. And soon we will start to see that push, just like we saw back in 2021, back in 2017, 2018. And again, I feel like Hedera's chart, I think that this is probably one of the clearest looking charts out there. Because again, if we're going back to like the bear market, and I just want to stress this because most people are looking at this and saying, all right, well, we have this high, we have this lower high, and we have this high, and then we have this high. So this should be the next point, right? We should be going into a deep bear market, correct? But we also had a very similar setup back here right before Altseason where we have a high, a lower high, and this was all consolidation. And yeah, technically we did take out the prior lows, okay? We just ranged a little bit under the prior lows, which is also why I do think that we could see a little bit lower on this next move before we start to kind of just trade a little bit more sideways. And yeah, it might extend a bit because again, we're, if you think about this was 322 days. We'll just go off of the initial wick here because that's exactly what we're going off of back here as well. This was about 343 days. If we extended a little bit more to 350 days, I wouldn't be surprised if we did do that. That would take us to about roughly the middle of the month completely. And, we would start to expect something to happen after this point, and we would essentially run into the end of January, potentially even into, the summer if we were going to repeat the full cycle here. But again, I just feel as if, markets wouldn't top off of a lower high the way that we did at a time where almost no one was euphoric at all. I just feel as if this is the top for crypto, if we are entering a bear market, I would argue that it's been one of the worst cycles for crypto. At a time where we are seeing some of the biggest announcements, we're seeing some of the biggest partnership announcements, regulatory discussions, institutional adoption is picking up. Like, I just feel like with all of these big announcements, price action wouldn't top where it's at now. We shouldn't see a big top or, a bear market start at this point when this bull cycle has barely been, that big at all. This has been probably one of the worst cycles if that was the case. So I don't expect that. I'm watching Bitcoin dumps kind of continue to sell off here. And then with, of course, HBAR, I'm mainly looking at us potentially, pushing a little bit lower here before we start to have an uptrend form again. And by the way, before we get excited, we still need to take out prior highs. So we need to take out the high going back to July. After that, we take out the all-time highs, and we could just go off of the actual candle wicks here. And then after that, we do go off of, the 2021 all-time high, going into price discovery, and then finally having that big run up. So again, take this with a grain of salt. But I just feel like a lot of people are going to get this cycle wrong simply because, emotions. And I get it, right? It's very easy to get caught up in the emotions of things, especially when you have money tied to these investments. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because I'm a free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.